Hey man, how's it going?
What's up? You here to debate?
Yeah, I said one little question about one of the things up there.
Okay. What's your question?
It was about the abolish police and prisons thing. I don't really understand that. Can you kind of like, what do you mean exactly? Like, what's your process on that?
All right. Can you just give me your name, age, and pronouns, please?
Yeah, it's Tristan. I'm 24 and I'm a he.
Okay, no problem. So, the movement for abolition of police and prisons is just calling for the removal of the carceral and retributive state of justice that our police and prison systems currently operate under, and replacing it with a system that focuses on transformative and restorative justice. So this would be focusing on the systemic issues that cause crime, as opposed to just using police in prisons as a band aid over crime.
Okay, so you just don't really like prisons, or you don't like the way they operate them.
Both. Prisons are just a tool used by the state to incarcerate people so they can generate a profit off of their labor.
But like, if someone murders a 12-year-old kid and has to go to that prison so they don't be out on the street killing other kids, then like, do you think they should be out because they're being used?
I think there are other tools at our disposal that we can use that are not prisons in order to hold someone accountable for doing something. I think prisons are archaic. I think prisons don't actually accomplish anything. They don't lower
Thank you,
recidivism.
Boo.
They don't prevent violence from happening because the violence just happens inside the prison. They don't serve a purpose in this regard.
But do you think that's the prison's fault? Do you think those are the people that are really fucked up in the head and don't
I
really
think
know
that's
any
the
better?
prison system's fault. Yeah, I don't think the majority of people in prison are in there because they're fucked up in the head. Yeah, I would reject this.
But like, even if they have them in certain cells or if they have them together, they're still violent people. No.
That's not true. We actually see that prison violence decreases significantly when people inside of prisons are treated like human beings. So, for instance, when the first stimulus checks went out, there was no stipulation about who could receive them. So, prisoners were able to receive stimulus checks. When the
Hmm.
prisoners received stimulus checks and they had money and they weren't worried about the stressors that come with this, so they could afford different things than commissary, things like that, violence plummeted in prisons, directly tied to the stimulus checks because people weren't stressed out about a million other things. When you are stressed out about things, when you have other stressors, violence is a byproduct. So yeah, and we also see that when we treat prisoners in prison with like respect, when we actually allow them to exist as human beings without removing their basic human rights, violence decreases. So it's not about they're just like these monsters incapable of violence, especially when the majority of people in prison aren't in there for violent crimes, they're in there for property crimes.
So aside from the ones that aren't in there for something really weird, or the ones that aren't in there because they're not mentally fucked up, I would say like what like just if you had to pick the ones that are really bad, like the ones that have raped, killed, whatever, like if you were allowed to take dismantle the current prison system, but you had to deal with all those thousands to millions of people that are in jail because of those things, what would you do with them?
First of all, there are not thousands to millions of people in jail because they're like inherently these violent people. That's just not the case. That's like a fucking
Yeah, but
crazy right to claim.
I'm talking about between the majority of prisons, like because if we're gonna talk about dismantling prisons, you can't just talk about where you live or your own country. You gotta talk about all of them because they all
I
run
mean,
out the same shit.
that's not true. The American prison system is vastly different from any other prison system on the planet. We engage in the criminal justice
Yeah,
system different than
sub on
any other
Twitch.
place on the planet.
Nice.
So when I'm talking about abolition of police and prisons, I'm talking from an American purview. I probably wouldn't say abolish police and prisons the way that they run the police and prison systems in a country like Norway, for example, right? Because to them, policing in prison is just a different thing. But in America, policing and prisons are just a tool of the state to protect private property and private interests over the protection of the people. But when it comes to the people in the prisons, again, I'm more focused on the socioeconomic conditions that lead to the crime, as opposed to trying to just shove everyone who does the crime in jail while never addressing the actual points that the actual reasons why those crimes are committed in the first place.
I can understand that, but I feel like there's some people that genuinely like because think about like people who do drugs, for instance, like you can't help people that won't help themselves. So if people are continuously going, okay, well, I've been here for a while, I feel like a better person, I've been treated better, and then they're gonna go out and they're just gonna do the same shit over and over again. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think anybody should be in jail for using drugs. All drugs should be decriminalized.
Even the hardcore ones?
Yes.
So, okay,
Use
so
of
hold
a
on.
drug,
So that
use
means
of a drug is a victimless crime. It does not create a victim. Why would I throw somebody in jail for not victimizing another person?
I wouldn't say that because, dude, I live in Canada and I've seen cities that are completely overrun by free drug use, and there's fucking homeless everywhere, and they literally just die on the street because they're
Homeless,
allowed to use
that is,
hardcore drugs.
again, it's not, there's no victim. They're doing it for them. They're doing it to themselves. That doesn't create a victim. You don't victimize yourself, right?
Yeah, but you also don't legalize hardcore drugs and call them safety injection sites just to watch entire cities like turn into fucking zombies because
Yeah,
they're just high all the
show me
time.
the evidence that the legalization of drugs in these areas led to like an increase in overdoses.
In overdoses?
Yep.
Well, why would overdose have to justify why they
Because
shouldn't
you
be
just
taking
said
hardcore
people were
drugs?
dying on the streets. Do you not mean of overdose? Do you mean they're dying of something else that's not related to the drug? If that's the case, I'm not going to blame the drug for them dying for something that's not related to the drug.
Yeah, but the drug's obviously going to deteriorate their health. Like, whether or not it was because they were homeless or because they took the drug, like eventually that drug's going to fucking get to their liver or their kidney and they're going to die anyways.
Okay, so should we criminalize alcohol?
Well, no, because alcohol's not as bad. It's completely different.
Okay, so alcohol, enough alcohol will destroy your liver. You just said when they use the drug will destroy eventually destroy their liver and their other. So you're not holding your special pleading now. The drugs are what's bad, but like the alcohol's fine, even though it's the exact same thing. It does the exact same thing. And I would argue more people get in trouble under alcohol than they do under drugs.
Well,
More
because
people do
it would
dangerous
take
things
you,
when they're
you
drinking.
know how much booze it would take you to like to fucking kill yourself in one night compared to like one sniff of fentanyl.
You didn't say it was one night. If we're talking about one night, that would be overdose. You said we're not talking
Well,
about
of course,
overdose.
that's a certain
You
instance,
said we're
though. But
talking about wait.
it's still bad.
Stop changing the goalpost. You said that they were changing that. You specifically said, Frames, thank you so much for the super chat. You said you specifically said that the drug affects them over time and it affects their health over time, not one night. If we're talking one night, we're talking overdose. You said we're not talking overdose. So which is it?
I like you're acting like as if I don't know what an overdose is or like that I don't understand how it's affecting it.
It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if we're going to talk about whether or not decriminalization of drugs works, we would need to see if decriminalization of drugs leads to like massive spikes in overdoses, massive spikes in drug use, but we actually don't see that. When we look at places like Oregon, for example, which decriminalized all drugs, what we actually saw was a 600% net increase in people seeking out drug-related care because they were no longer in fear of being imprisoned for a crime that does not create a victim. The use of drugs, the purchase of drugs, and the possession of drugs are victimless crimes. So no, I'm not going to put somebody who has an addiction, which is a disease, into prison because they use drugs, especially when the prisons, they can still get access to those drugs.
I mean, I agree with you though. I don't think people that use drugs should be in jail. I'm just saying that legalizing the drugs is not
I didn't
like
say
a
legalizing,
solid.
I said decriminalizing. Those are two different things. Decriminalizing means that we don't punish people for doing these specific things. We can still criminalize drug sale. I still think selling drugs should probably be criminalized unless you're like a licensed drug dealer. I think that this is not necessarily a bad thing to criminalize drug sale for specific things. However, decriminalizing is not a bad thing, right? Decriminalizing you should face no repercussions whatsoever for purchasing, holding, or using drugs. Zero punishment whatsoever. These are victimless crimes. You should have no repercussions put upon you for these.
Okay, I kind of understand your point. I thought I thought you were saying like it was just, you know, do whatever the fuck you want, free rampart, just like everyone just do drugs and just die off is what I thought you were trying to like, you know, it's like cuz I don't know, decriminalizing certain drugs, man, it's just like I understand people are going to do their own thing. It's like no matter what it's going to happen, like it's you can't eliminate something like that out of the process, but there's got to be certain ones that have to be criminalized. Don't you think? Like when you really look at it, there's certain drugs that just should not be allowed in anyone's hands.
No,
like there's got to be
disagree.
a few, right?
No, I disagree. I think that we should not criminalize any drug use. All that does is it leads to negative outcomes for people with addiction. What we should be doing, is we should be providing comprehensive, effective care. And one of the things that does show it lead to a decrease in drug use and an increase in seeking out drug related care is safe injection sites, safe use kits. These are all harm reduction methods, and they work. Safe use kits lower the amount of people who get transmittable diseases within the population of people who do drugs. Safe use sites make it so that overdoses happen less because you have medical staff on hand ready to help in case somebody ODs. Like, all of these things are shown to reduce harm. And I think it's important that we do that. But throwing addicts into prison does not reduce harm. It effectively harms them more. And somebody who may just be going into prison on a simple drug charge is now going to be connected with deeper criminality, possibly, and get involved into other harder stuff because we just threw them into prison and locked up the key.
Okay. So like if you had to reform that kind of system, right? Like if you were in charge and they said, "Hey, these safety injection sites are kind of working, but people are still, there's hundreds of people. They just come here for the drugs anyways. They don't really give a shit." Like, how would you like go about that, as in to like help them instead of just bringing them to a place where they get free drugs?
Well, so safe injection sites don't provide them with drugs. They are just a safe place that they can use the drugs they already have, where they may be able to get access to clean and safe needles and things like that, and where there will be medical staff on hand to help them in case they OD or want to get into treatment. But if you want to fix the system, all drug therapy and rehab needs to be free. It needs to be easily accessible, and we need to not criminalize people who use it, right? You should be able to go to a safe injection site, and if you're there, somebody can say, "Hey, here's a needle if you want to use. I'm not going to punish you for it, but if you want help, this is a free system. All you got to do is say yes. We will get you into free rehab instantly."
Okay. I mean, yeah, I can agree with you on that. It's just like I said, like because I'm from Canada, right, and like our entire country has that kind of shit going on right now. Like we have safety injection sites everywhere. We have like homeless encampments where they have that kind of shit set up, and like it's just from what I've seen, it just doesn't. I feel like it doesn't really help them because it's like if they're already at such a low anyways, like and they see like, oh, I can just go here and use drugs and no one's gonna do anything about it. It just kind of, I feel like it doesn't really do much but give them the go ahead to just not worry about the drugs, because now that no one's actually like holding them accountable for using it, that it actually doesn't, it makes them think that it's okay to do it.
Yeah, I just disagree that this would be a drug related issue. I think it's not related to the drugs. I think what we're talking about more is like the socioeconomic conditions that people are in. Homelessness is only tied to drug use within so much as you can say that the homeless population is using drugs, right? I think, and when we look at America, at least the overwhelming majority of the houseless population are not drug addicts.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is hard to statistically have that on point because you can't really just go around asking homeless people stuff like that. But um, yeah, it's just because in my experience, man, like for instance, I was just in school about a couple months ago, and I had to drive up to this city where I swear to God, every single square inch of it, probably a good 120,000 people live in that town, and like every single block is just needles, safety injection sites. People are like crossed over, hunched over. They're like sleeping on the floor and sleeping on the road, and it's like when I
But
see shit like that, it
do you
makes me.
recognize that your like lived experience isn't indicative of like every like isn't indicative of the whole? It's only indicative of what you've specifically seen.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you go from city to city and you've seen almost the exact same thing, it's like you
Sure,
don't,
but
you
again,
can't,
when I've even looked it up, only about 26% of people experiencing houselessness in Canada identified substance use or addiction as a reason for losing their housing. So if we're taking, we can even conservatively say let's up it up to 30, like just to be on the safe side. But even then, that's only 30% of the houseless population in Canada are identifying that way, are houseless because of drugs. Typically it's a deeper socioeconomic reason for becoming houseless. It's not about like I use drugs, right? There are a million reasons somebody might lose their home.
Mhm. I don't know. I feel like safety injection sites are really just it. When you look at just typical human behavior, if someone has an addiction and someone feels like they have this absolute need to do something, and then it fucks with their head because their brain's so used to this drug, and it's like I need it, I need it, I need it. It's like I feel like when you're not really giving them the reality of the situation, you're just kind of saying, well, okay, here, you can do it here, and we have clean needles, and it's safe. We don't want you to overdose. But at the same time, it's like, if you're just feeding into the same addiction, whether or not you think you're helping them or not, does it actually help?
Yes, because we have evidence that it helps. Again,
But like
again,
what percentage of those people actually?
Oregon decriminalized drugs and saw a 600% increase in people seeking out drug-related care. We know for a fact that we know for a fact that if they are not criminalized, they are more likely to seek out this care because they're not afraid of going to jail. They're not afraid of that. They're not afraid of these things. So they're more likely to do it.
No, I agree with you. Like I'm saying, like I don't want, like, I've never thought that just throwing every single person that's ever even looked at a blunt should be thrown in jail kind of shit. That's not what I meant. I just meant like what like, because if you have the numbers on you, I just wanted to know, like, because you seem like you know what you're talking about. Like, how many of these people that go to these injection sites actually get help or seek out help after they've realized that they have that safe place to go to?
I don't know that we have those numbers. I don't know when Canada started implementing safe use sites, and if they, I don't know enough.
Well, no, I just meant like even where you live. Like, if you have,
there are no safe
like,
use sites where I live.
Oh, there isn't?
No.
Okay, because like I am agreeing with you. I just want to know, like, how many of these people are actually doing it because it's safe and it's help, or it's because like their brain's itching to go actually get this drug without,
we did a study
funny.
on the very first medically supervised safe consumption site in North America, and it found a reduction of the rate of drug use, a reduction in promotion of drug use, and potentially, where is it? And a reduction in injections in total. So that's a study.
Okay,
on,
and that like that
was,
spans.
Let me see if they have a specific number for how much it decreased. They don't have a specific number. They just said that they saw a decrease in drug use through the induction of safe consumption sites. It reduced individuals' physical harms associated with drug use. It reduced the spread of HIV and hepatitis C. It reduced infections, and it reduced overdose. It reduced public harm, which was publicly discarded syringes and injection-related litter. It reduced public crime. It reduced public drug use and public overdose, and it was more cost-effective compared to other interventions at the time.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I guess I can go common ground on that. I just like I understand when you see certain, like when you're talking about from personal experience compared to what you've seen compared to the actual numbers, it is different. But I just thought I'd bring it up because like I've seen so much of it, and it just kind of worries me that maybe they're not as helpful as most people think. But
let me ask you a question. If
I mean, if it says a majority of people are,
I want to ask you something real quick. If you have a family member that has an addiction, would you rather them use their drugs randomly in some crack house on 13th Street or go to a safe use site?
I mean, if like they're not going to listen to me and they wouldn't come home, I'd probably ask them to go somewhere where it's not going to be crowded full of people. Yeah.
Somewhere where it's not going to be
crowded. Like if they can't do it around people they can't trust, but like, well, yeah, because if you're around people that don't trust you and like, or that you can't trust or you don't know and you're doing drugs and you can't tell what if something happens, you know what I mean? Like, and then these people don't give a fuck and you're just lying on the ground. Like, you know what I mean?
Okay. Well,